It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Thursday, June 9th, and so happy for you joining us, and we are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what do we have today on this exciting podcast for you? We have Sermons in the Sky, Q&A Thursday, and of course, commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? And how was your Wednesday service last night? I'm sure all of you guys have received a lot of grace from it. It's still Wednesday for me, so I haven't heard it yet, but I'm looking forward to it in a few hours. Now, if you haven't yet, go ahead, leave some likes or some comments to build our community. If you're someone who's not really extroverted, clicking that like button actually is not that hard. Just click that like button, whether it's for this podcast in general or for people's comments. Would love to build the likes in this community too. But I think more importantly, we want to hear what you guys are thinking, what's going on in your mind. So, leave a comment to build our community also. I'm just super happy for everyone joining us here every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other more and more each and every day. All right? So it is Thursday. Thursday in beautiful Vancouver. Yes, the weather is so amazing. It's like 22, 23 degrees. It feels super hot because it's like, it's not like Malaysia that's very humid. Here it's dry, so it feels hotter than 20. Like it feels like 30. Like if I compared it to Malaysia. But the weather, so amazing. I just want to go to the beach, even though the beaches are not that nice in Vancouver. But still, I want to go to the beach, just chill. And I'm having a good day. I'm going to be honest with you guys about yesterday's podcast. Let me be super honest with you guys. I was struggling in yesterday's podcast. Struggling, not mean like struggling in my faith. I'm just like, I got to the point where I'm like going, oh, what do I need to talk about today? And I felt like I didn't have anything meaningful to contribute. That's what I felt like yesterday. It was just a feeling more than, it's more than anything else. And I think it's kind of like how Sunseem talked about in this week's message when he talked to Jesus, like, Jesus, I can't, if I just talk to you through my heart and my feelings, sometimes it can be swayed. And it kind of felt like that yesterday. I'm just like, am I really saying anything that's like gonna contribute to, like, is it even worthy for me talking about? And that was yesterday. Today, I don't have that feeling anymore, but I just realized it's kind of one of those moments that we just all go through all the time. But I'm having a great day today. And I told you guys that, I have that character where I get super hyper-focused on certain things, right? And I realized I'm actually super hyper-focused not only on these coloring books, because I just finished my 15th book yesterday, or it would be my 16th book. I am kind of hyper-focused on taking care of my parents, which is a good thing, right? It's like, yesterday, I'm driving home, and, when you drive home, you see your house. I see my parents' house, and I look on the sides of the house, the paneling and stuff, it's kind of dirty. But it's like our house has got a basement and 2 floors, right? So it's pretty high. Like you need a ladder to clean it. I don't want my dad going up to get a ladder. It'll be dangerous for him at 76 to go up on a ladder to clean the house, kind of thing, right? I was like, nah, he doesn't need to do that. So I thought to myself, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna buy them a pressure washer. So I talked to them. I was like, yeah, there's some cheap, nice ones at Costco right now. So I decided to buy them a pressure washer so we can clean the side of the house without them going on a ladder. Also, you can use it to clean your car, clean the concrete on the ground. So I definitely think it's going to be useful for sure. But I'm just noticing even more how my mind works. I have such a pioneering mind. Like I'm the one that goes first. Try stuff out right away. Like think about that. Like all throughout this, I talk, think about this podcast. This is the first of its kind in Proverbs. Trying it out. Crypto, I talked about going into crypto. I got really into it. Now I'm into AI, ChatGPT, Midjourney, these types of different programs and stuff. I'm just like, wow, okay. So, I do have that pioneering mind. I want to try things out first. And here, let me tell you a cool story. Like, I found something very interesting about my character while I was growing up in Providence. And what happened is one time when I was in England, Okay, I was in England. I was like, we were pioneering a church over there, and we had some guests come over. Like, let's go out to play paintball. I love paintball. Now, paintball, you basically have guns that shoot pellets of paint, right? And it looks like, when it splats on someone, it looks like, they're bleeding or whatever it is, right? But it's so exhilarating. And the reason why it's so exhilarating because there's a sense of danger. Like if you guys have ever been to paintball, the paintball like itself goes like 300 kilometers an hour. That's how fast it is, and it's like 280 feet per second. It's fast. Now, of course, it's nothing close to a gun because a gun is like 10 times more faster, literally. Because the gun, a gun shoots at around 3,000 kilometers and a paintball is 300. So it's literally 10 times faster. But still, when you get hit with a paintball, it stings, it hurts. You get bruises. Sometimes your skin breaks and you start to bleed. And for me, after I go paintball, I check out my bruises and my welts, and I'm just happy. I'm like, oh, look at these man scars. It is a sign that I am a man. I have a scar on my face. I have a scar on my elbow or whatever it is, right? And because, it hurts, you do get bruised. This is why a lot of people are very scared when they go to paintball, right? Most just kind of hide or try to find a place that's really, really safe so they don't get hit kind of thing, right? So for me, I just find it fun and exciting, not only to avoid being hit by a paintball, but also I much more enjoy shooting others. Or in other words, I like to inflict pain on other people. All right, I'm off the point. So I went there with a group of members. And I noticed something really interesting. So when the game begins, like I said, the majority of the people are kind of scared. They're trying to find a really safe place to hide and not get hit. But when the game started, right? So there's like a bunch of games you play. They blow a whistle and you start. When the game starts, the funny thing was, whenever a game started, there was always 3 of us that just started running. Like we didn't hide. We ran and we shot. We're going like total Rambo style, right? And we run to try to gain ground, try to get a better positioning, and it's kind of like a video game. But here's the interesting thing is when I noticed like the 3 people that kept going out was me and 2 others. And the interesting thing was all 3 of us were church pioneers. All 3 of us were. That mentality to just go first before anyone else. Even though there's danger, even though it's something that you're not even sure what the result is going to be, you just go. And I thought that was very interesting to see because I was like, oh, maybe this is just a character of people who are like, like pioneering style. They'll go try things out first, right? And I'm going to tell you this very, very honestly is, yeah, I'll be the first to try, but I won't be the last there. I'm going to leave first. Right? Now that's kind of, you see my character is, I'll get into it and then I'll get bored of it and I want to try something else kind of thing, that ADHD style character. But yeah, I kind of noticed that about myself from a while back, but I'm already seeing myself doing something new soon. Like I already have in mind what my next step is going to be. It's going to still include ChatGPT and stuff like that, but I'm going to try something a little bit different. Maybe. I'm still not sure yet. I'm going to wait until June 18th. Either way. So yeah, that's something that I kind of found out about myself as I was, growing up in this history. Oh, there's another reason why I'm super excited. I'm also super excited because I found this super nice cafe. And every Wednesday, which is today, remember I have to record these because it's for Asia morning, right? So 5:30 a.m. Malaysia is 2:30 p.m. The day before in Canada, right? So that's why I don't, it's still Wednesday for me. I haven't even heard the Wednesday message yet, right? So I found this really nice cafe, and every Wednesday is $3 lattes. And I'm just like so excited because that's the same price of what I pay when I go to Malaysia. When I was in Malaysia, lattes were cheaper, much, much cheaper. You're usually going to pay about $5 to $6 here in Vancouver, which is somewhere around like what, 17 to 25 ringgit. Something along that line when I'm paying 10 ringgit. And that's the price of like $3, right? So I'm just like, yay, this is so great. So I'm going today. After this, I'm gonna go get my latte, yeah, I'm gonna get my latte today. And the place is pretty good too. It's like the headquarters for one of these cafes that are over here. So I'm super excited about this, right? So that's kind of one of the other reasons I'm super happy also. I know, I'm simple, right? And thank you so much for your responses when it comes to getting yourself back to normal running speed for churches and stuff, getting people back to church. I found it to be a very interesting conversation. A lot of other people were talking to me about it too. And there's a lot of different things that, I'll tell you this, there's probably a lot of different things that stops a community from forming in a church. And, it's not just one thing or another. It's a multivariate. There's so many different reasons that play into why a church doesn't have the capability to actually build into an actual community, right? And first, I think the most important one is actually going to be leadership. Like leadership is a very, very big thing. And in most cases, leaders don't have the skill to create a church community. Right? It's just not, we weren't raised or we haven't learned how to raise a community, right? And I think that's a big skill that a pastor needs because a church isn't just an organization that's trying to make money or something like that. When you look at a church, the whole reason the church is there is to build a community, right? This is what keeps people there. This is what allows people to grow together in this history, right? So, churches are about not just delivering the word and not just bringing people together. It's building a community so people can live and grow together to make the history of God. And that's why solid leadership is the one that, when it comes to churches, knows how to build and make a community. And I think that is super, super important, right? So you have the leadership on one side. And of course, the other side, which is very important for a community to build, is the people. And a lot of times, people, we lack in certain areas. All of us do, right? Like, say we look at someone's like personality type, or say they're introvert or extrovert. It makes a difference. Because if you have a lot of introverts, in which Providence really does, sometimes people don't want to join events. They don't want to be, they don't want to be around a lot of people. They prefer just to go home. They prefer to watch it online, right? And what happens is if the people don't kind of buy in, and like say introverts who don't want to come out, then it's hard to make the atmosphere with just a few people, right? It's hard to make a community. So there's one thing that people, about us, about the people in the church that stops a community from actually forming. And I think the second thing about people that's really difficult also is like character. Character is an issue too, right? Some people just don't mix well with others. Like I'm going to be honest, like, let's be honest here. It's quite normal in a church to have people of all characters and all types of personalities. It's a normal thing, right? And not everyone is going to get along well, which basically means not everyone's going to be best friends. And honestly, my advice here is not everyone has to be best friends. It's not necessary to be best friends. In life, like in your current time right now, you probably only have maybe one or two best friends, most likely one. In their life, with all the people that you have in your life right now, you probably have just a one or two, if not, but most likely one. So when people fight or people don't get along in church, it's not about they have to be best friends. It's more about they have to respect each other, right? People don't need to be hanging out all the time, calling each other and talking for hours. No, that's what best friends do, and not everyone is your best friend, right? And this is kind of where the people and leadership comes in together, where leadership comes in, they're helping to build the community, create a community, and they're able to bring people together regardless of their personality or character, and people will be able to feel like they're part of something. Yes, they're not going to be best friends with everyone, but honestly, no one wants to be best friends with everyone. You don't want to tell everyone everything, right? There's only going to be that one or two people that you really, really trust, right? So, and for me is, I think one of the big things that kind of goes in my mind lately when it comes to Providence and how we're going to grow, especially in particular when it comes to leadership, I find it kind of a very interesting conundrum of how leadership is actually going to get better, right? Because one thing we do know for sure is we know that head leaders are not fully equipped coming into the position, even headquarters, whatever, they're not fully equipped. Right? This is not a knock on individuals. It's just the reality of not having a real leadership program that raises or prepares people for their position, right? It's just true. We don't have a program. If someone says, are you raising leaders? Take a look if there's an actual leadership program. Now, of course, in pioneering churches, it might be different because it's so small. You might not have an actual program. But churches that are already at like 50, 60, 80, 100 people, by that time, we're supposed to be raising new leaders, right? But if you don't have a leadership training program in which, in all honesty, once again, I'm saying the word honest because I've been there. Every country I've been to doesn't have a leadership program, like a real leadership program that is raising and preparing people for their position. I've never seen it. I just haven't. Maybe the big three has it. Big three is like Korea, Japan, Taiwan. I'm sure they'll have some type of program there. But, if you look at your country, you don't have a leadership training program, then you know that the leaders are not fully equipped. Remember, they could be somewhat equipped because they've learned some things along the way in life through experience, but they're not fully equipped to be a head leader, to be HQ and stuff like that too. But the bigger issue is, how do you solve this matter? And let me tell you the conundrum. The conundrum is this. In order to have a leadership training program, we need to make one. We got to actually make a leadership training program, which means the biggest question is, who is going to make it? And when you look at most things that leaders do, like when we say who is going to make it, usually people will ask the head leaders, ask the assistant leaders, ask the HQ to make this program. But there's a problem with this because most leaders are busy. They don't have time to focus on a training program, right? Like, for instance, let me give an example. An example is if you asked someone in your church to do like a lecture training program, most of these people are already having 2 or 3 other different missions. And it's not easy to, I think it's an assumption to say that just because someone can teach means they can, just because someone can lecture doesn't mean they can, they have the ability to teach you how to lecture. Right? Lecturing and teaching how to lecture are 2 completely different things. And because leaders are that busy with their missions, can they really research and make a good lecture training program? And the answer is no, because you don't have enough time to research. So what happens is our churches always end up with mediocre training programs that are not consistent. Not consistent meaning you'll do it once a year and then no one will bring it up until someone else says, oh, I want lecture training again. Like, it's not consistent. It's not like, hey guys, 3 times a year we have a lecture training program. We're going to do it like this. No. Like, I know that lecture training programs are usually not consistent because the people doing them are leaders and they don't have time to prepare all the time for these things, right? They're busy. And what's going to happen is sometimes they're late, sometimes they're not prepared, sometimes they cancel. How do I know? Because when I did the lecture training program for a bunch of people in one country, I did it after I stepped down from head leading, and I decided to make a lecture training program. I never missed it. I was never late. But someone said to me, oh, you actually come every time and you're actually prepared, which means they're used to certain programs or these training programs that are not consistent. The leaders might not come all the time. They'll cancel, or they're late, or they're ill-prepared, right? And how do I know? It's because they're shocked that I'm there every single time. You know what I mean? So do you see how hard it is? We're trying to make a program, but the only people who are capable of making them, or we think have the ability to, are those that are already leading, that don't have enough time. So then how would you actually get these lecture training or leadership training programs to start? Like, how would you get good programs? And the answer is, take a look at how most competent organizations do it. And what they do is they will hire a think tank or group that focuses only on making that one thing, and which in our case is a leadership training program. Right? So what they do is, because they're busy, they're busy on the business side of it, they'll hire a group or a firm to make that program for them. They'll pay that group and say, you've got 6 months to deliver this. And then if you deliver well, then you have another 6 months to implement the program, right? So what happens is they'll find a think tank or a group or a firm whose only job is to do that one thing. There is no other mission. They are paid well, they can focus on it, and they can create this program because it's that important to that organization. So what's going to happen is, at the end, if you have a group that's super focused on it, they are going to do it in a professional way. It'll be well developed. It'll be a leadership training program that's done with research. And the reason why we can't do it now is because the people, the people that want, the people that are capable of doing it are all leading. They're all in missions. And we have no other people. Like, think about your churches right now too. I think one of the issues people do talk about is there is no one, there are not many future leaders. Like, people who are willing to step up to become a leader. And, and that's, for me, that's a completely other topic too. Why there aren't future leaders that are lining up to be leaders in this history. And there's like I said, that too is a multivariate reason why there's not enough of this happening. But part of it is just got to they're looking at the people in front of them, their leaders in front of them, and they're going to look at that, and from that, they're going to judge whether they want to do it or not. And in a lot of cases, they're not going to want to do it because it's not done well. It's not done professionally, right? So for me, as my suggestion to churches or groups would be to actually hire a think tank or an independent group, or like I'll give you an example even right now or what about those leaders who are now retired, right? Who've been in the system, who have been lecturing, who have been doing, I'm one of those types of peoples too, right? And what we have to realize here is if you can find like a group of people that have the heart and the mind to want to do it, then it's going to change a lot of things, right? So, that's kind of one of the things that's in my mind is, yeah, we do have a problem. Yeah, we don't have a leadership training program. We don't have anything professional. We don't have anything that's been researched. We don't have anything that's proven. And our leaders are not fully equipped. They are equipped in some areas, but they're not fully equipped. Some can lecture, some can preach, some can manage, some can counsel, some can do marriage counseling, but no one has like the full package in which we should be giving these tools and skills to all the leaders who are in charge of these churches that are in charge of like 200, 300, 500 lives. And I think it's that important. So yeah, that's one of the thoughts I do have a lot. Like, I've been talking about this since 2018, to be honest. And I think it's something that's that important, but it's not something where someone can just do it on their own. Like, it has to be something when they're supported and they can focus their hearts like only on that and nothing else. Either way. So yeah, love talking to you guys about this subject. Leadership is a very, very big thing on my mind right now too. So if you have any comments, put them down, which will lead us into our first break for today.
All right, so let's get into today's word study segment, which is Q&A Thursday, and great questions for you. I hope you guys really enjoy this. Let's start off with the first question, which has to do with this week's Sunday message. And this comes from the excerpt that says, when Sunsi was praying to Jesus, he said, "One day I told Jesus that I don't want to communicate with him through my heart or through feelings. I told him that my reason for that is because a person's heart or feelings can be influenced by that person's desires, and a person's thoughts can be generated by their own thoughts, and thus not a sure thing. So how can we better understand what this message means? When should we put away our feelings and heart in prayer? Sometimes I feel that having feelings and shimjung for certain things can help me to pray more earnestly." All right, so this is a very good question because in order for us to understand what this passage is actually saying is to understand what the key point that came out of it. Right? What was the key point that came out of this prayer? And the key point that came out of it was read the Bible. Right? So remember, that is the key point. And from that, we're going to be able to understand, so this is what the meaning, or this is why Sunsim said this thing, right? So the one thing we do know is when Sunsim says that our hearts and our feelings are, sometimes it's influenced by our own thoughts. We can make up thoughts on our own too. And that's one of the things that Sunsim does talk about in the past. If you look like Proverbs 4:24, it's like, guard the heart, for it's the wellspring of life. Was that right? Proverbs 4:24. It's one of those famous verses. I just haven't taught in such a long time that I sometimes forget these verses. It's 4:23, right? "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Everything comes from your heart. But the one thing about the human heart is fickle. Right? One moment you're okay, next moment you collapse. One moment nothing's happening, next moment you start to cry. And I think all of us have seen it before, whether ourselves or other people. Like for me, like this type of situation when someone's good one moment and then they're not the next, it's usually girls, right? It's usually when people, and it's mainly because girls are a little bit more emotional than guys, like generally speaking, right? And, it happens to people that are more emotional, or maybe people that are going through difficult times, right? We just don't see it, and then it all kind of comes out at the same time, right? So we're good one moment, then collapse the next, or sometimes we're strong in faith, and then all of a sudden we're like, what the heck? These people were like so good and such leaders in this history, and now they don't even believe in God? And what happens with people is, we could be focused on God in the beginning, and then later on what happens is we start to get focused on money or power or things of the world, and these things happen too, right? And what this verse is the point of this verse is not saying you can never trust your heart and feelings. It's saying that you can't trust your heart and feelings all the time because we change so much. And why is Sunsim talking about this? Because Sunsim wants to know clearly of what Jesus and God wants. Right? So imagine you're praying right now and the only thing you do is pray, and you're going by your feelings. You're going by, and you went through so many things during the day, and when you pray, you're going to have these thoughts in your head too. Like even when you're praying and you receive some type of revelation, how would you know it's real? How would you know it's absolute? Like, that's why when you look at the world today, it's like, hey, I'm a man because I feel like a man. I'm a woman now because I feel like a woman. Right? Or how often someone feels offended or whatever it is, right? And the honest truth is, our feelings don't matter as much as we think because it changes so often. Right? There's many times we felt something about someone, but later we change our minds because we realize we misunderstood, but we felt it at that time. Right? That's what the heart and the feelings are like. So we have to understand, what is Sunsim talking about here? He's talking to Jesus. He wants to learn the truth. He wants to know clearly what Jesus wants. What does he want in his, what can he teach him through, what can he teach him? What are the truths of how to live? What's the purpose of creation? And what Sunsim said is, if the whole time I'm basing all this knowledge that, everything that you're teaching me on just a communication done by my feelings and thoughts, there could be a lot of mistakes because it would depend on what he went through during that day. So Sunsim's like, where could I get a full and clear idea of what you want, Jesus? So in this conversation with Jesus, what's the end point? The end point is what? If you want to hear clearly, absolutely what I want, what Jesus wants, how to live properly, how to
fulfilled the purpose of creation? The answer is read the Bible. Right? So the answer is read the Bible. The clearest way to get to God's shimjung, to know what he wants from us, what is the purpose of creation, is through the Bible. It is the clear written words of God that have been passed down for the past 6,000 years. So when you understand the context of the conversation, it's not so much about don't pray with feelings and thoughts, don't trust your feelings and thoughts. It's not about that. It's more about he wanted to get clear answers. He wanted to know absolute that this is what Jesus is saying to me. And in order to get that, he said the best way is not just to pray, but you have the words of God there. And when you look at, when we teach the 30 lessons, there's a lesson called the revelations, right? How to receive revelations, right? And all revelations, how do we check them? Whether you hear God's voice, whether you receive revelation through nature, whether you see revelation through, inspiration in your heart, everything has to be checked through the Bible and the Word. Everything. Right? Because the Bible is the clear answer. If it doesn't fit and go along with the Bible, which is God's word, then you know whether your thoughts or what you've received as revelation is true or not. Every time you receive inspiration, every time you receive revelation, every time there's a natural revelation, every time there's moving in your hearts, we have to realize that the best way to check is through the Bible itself. It is the clear written words of God. It's the clearest way since you can be influenced by your own desires and thoughts. Which doesn't have to do with, sometimes I have feelings and I can feel shimjung and it helps me to pray. That's a completely different thing, right? So when you see the context in which Sunseem is talking about this and why he's saying it, the clear point he was giving to us is if you want to see God, if you truly want to see God, read the words of God, read the Bible, right? And that's how we need to understand this according to the context of what it's talking about. So I hope that makes a lot of sense to you guys there too, because I think that was Louisa. Louisa, I'm not even sure what country you're from, but your last name is Oi, which means you're either from Singapore or I'm thinking you're from Singapore or Malaysia. That's my feeling because I know someone else with the last name Oi too. Either way, so that's the first question for today. Second question is more historical, and it's this is about 30 lessons, right? And it's about the conflict and ignorance lesson. And the question is, the conflict and ignorance lesson seems to have some issues with the history and how we teach it. The history books say that Egypt wasn't fighting against Carchemish, but they were fighting together. Is there a mistake in how we teach? Of course. So we also teach, like when I learned conflict and ignorance, this issue came up before in the past too, probably in 2010, 2011, I think. 2011, 2012, somewhere around that time. And what happens is we're teaching that Egypt went to fight Carchemish, right? But then, of course, Josiah stops him and then he eventually loses to Carchemish, right? But here's where we could see some of the issues coming up. And this is a very, very big, important thing we have to understand. The issue comes up in 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 29. And this says that while Josiah was king, Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, went up to the Euphrates River to help the king of Assyria, which is Carchemish. He's helping them. Okay? So here's the thing that's interesting. So like, oh wow, the Bible does say that Egypt went to help, not to fight against. But interestingly, if you read the Korean Bible, 2 Kings 23:29, it says they went to fight against Assyria. So you see that the Korean Bible actually says the opposite. So there's an issue with the translation of the Korean version and the English version. So my question to you is, which one is right? Which one is right? And it's actually the English version. The English version is right that he actually went to go help. And this also is proven through history books, right? History proves that what was happening at that time was Babylon was this new power that was starting out and they were going to go take over Assyria. Now, the capital city of Assyria originally was Nineveh. Okay. Now, if anyone wants to take over another country or another empire, you have to start with the capital city. Once you get the capital city, you got everything. Why? All the leaders are there. It's the most heavily protected. It's the richest. So everything comes from that one capital city. So Babylon goes to attack Nineveh and they destroy Nineveh. So what the leaders do is they move the capital city to Haran, which is in modern day Turkey. Now, when they did it in Haran, what happens is Babylon destroys them again. So they move all the way to the most western part of the Assyrian Empire, which is Carchemish. And what happens here is Babylon is, bringing their army to fight against Assyria at Carchemish, which is the last stand for Assyria. So what does Assyria do? Assyria calls upon Egypt, which is the strongest army in northern Africa, to come help them. And basically, if you help us, we'll rule together, right? So what eventually happens, what we see is even true in history, is it was actually Egypt going to help Carchemish against Babylon. Help Carchemish against Babylon. It wasn't to fight Carchemish, right? So in the end, this doesn't really change the actual key point of the lesson. It's just the one thing that you'll see in the Korean Bible. It says to fight, but the English Bible and all the other Bibles in the world are saying it's, well, maybe the Chinese Bible says fight too, but this all the other Bibles are saying that they went to help. Okay? But yeah, it's not changing anything in the lesson itself. It's just basically, it's not to fight, it's to help, right? But the most important part of the lesson is about Josiah not listening to God and then fighting against Necho on his way up to Carchemish. All right? So that is the answer for that. So hopefully that helps you guys out too, especially when you're listening to or teaching the conflict in ignorance lesson. All right? So there it is, guys. It's a little bit short, but those are the 2 questions for today. Hope you guys really, really enjoyed that. Okay? So that means, this is really quick. We're going into our second break for today.
We believe in the same God, but we are on different levels.
Put your hands in the sky if you feel alive. All the stories that we made, just you and I. Never losing all the passion. All this love is my obsession. Oh my gosh, this feeling got me heat stroke. His love like a billion pots about to heat though. I ain't never breaking from this bond, cause you and I are only one. If you ain't living with the Lord, then who you with? Who you with? If you ain't living with the Lord, then who you with? You with? You and get together with the Lord every day, all day. You and get together with the Lord all day, all day. You and get together with the Lord every day, all day. You and get together with the Lord all day, all day. Together with the Lord, I'm living my best life. Don't worry about a thing, you know it's only some in life. We sing about memory stories that we share. We'll fall deeper in love as we stop and just stare. My eyes only on you, they sparkle with love. Don't forget my charm too. There will never be another. Live this life only for you. I give you this promise that I will hold true. If you ain't living with the Lord, then who you with? Who you with? If you ain't living with the Lord, then who you with? You with? You and get together with the Lord every day, all day. You and get together with the Lord all day, all day. You and get together with the Lord every day, all day. You and get together with the Lord all day, all day.
We believe in the same God, but we are on different levels.
Okay, so let's get into our final segment for today. And of course, we know every single Thursday we have sermons in the sky. It allows me to kind of give like a mini sermon with the inspiration that God gives me throughout the week. So I'm very, very thankful for this time. So let's get into today's sermons in the sky. So this week's message, really inspired me, because it's so fitting that at this time, in this most difficult time, people are wanting to see God, right? We want to see, we want to feel, we want to work together and feel the power coming through us, kind of thing, right? And we almost wish that God would just show his glory, show the world who we are, that God is with us. This is God's history. But it just never works that way. And at times when we are struggling, we almost believe that, we'll even ask the question, God, are you there? But this week's message is about seeing God and how we can do so. And this reminds me of one of the things that Sunseam talked about maybe like 20 years ago. And this is on one of his tours when he came to America. And he looked at us and he said, you know, God is a mirror. He gives and he shows as much as we do. Because when you face a mirror, if you make a slight movement with your finger, you only see a slight movement in the mirror. If you wave your hands wildly, then the mirror will show you just that. What does it mean God is a mirror? It means God, because he is fair and because he is just, he will show you his power, his greatness, his omnipotence, almightiness, as much as you move and as you take action first. I really felt this last week. I was talking to members who are struggling, who are needing help or wanted to help other people, and they had these questions they brought to me. And I would sit there listening to what they were going through or what they were thinking. And in my heart, I'd be thinking, I'm like, God, how do you answer this? I'm like, God, you got to help me here. And even when it was my turn to talk, and when I didn't have an answer, I had two choices. You either remain silent or you start to move. And when I started to talk, I started to ask questions. I was getting more involved. And the more I did, the more inspiration would come. And you guys have all had that moment before. When you're lecturing or teaching or counseling, giving your friends advice, and the answer pops in your head. And you get really excited because you know exactly what to say. And when you say it, the other person gets inspired. And then when they get inspired, you get more inspired by seeing them inspired by what you just said. And when I was talking to these people last week, I knew it was God and the Holy Spirit working with me because I didn't have the answer. I'd have like a verse pop in my head, or I'd have a word that pops up like, oh yeah, this is it. And I'd be able to talk about it. But the one thing we need to understand is faith requires us to move first. Faith is about the first step that you have to take. Faith is not about knowing exactly how things are going to happen, knowing if it'll succeed or fail. That's not faith. It's not about knowing that. When you look at Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, it says, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. We're not sure, but I'm confident in what I'm hoping for. That confidence, that assurance in our hope that it's going to happen. But that faith requires you to move first. It cannot be you waiting for God to give the entire manual and all the instructions first and you knowing exactly what's going to happen. That is guaranteed. That's not faith. Faith is the confidence and assurance in what you hope for. You're not even sure if it'll happen. But that's your faith in God. If we all want to see and feel God right now, it requires the movement of our hearts and bodies. That with that confidence and assurance, with that faith, you know that God will take care of it. You see, how does our hearts move first? Well, if your hearts are closed, you're not going to do anything. If your hearts are closed, you're going to be negative about something. You're not going to want to move around. Your hearts move by first being opened. We have to get up. we have to believe even more, especially in the difficult times. We have to have faith in God in this history, and we have to open our hearts to what God really wants from us right now. What does He want you to do? And if your hearts are closed, even if God speaks to you, you won't get up and do it. But when your heart opens, your body begins to move. It all starts with the heart. Your heart's got to open. Faith has got to move the heart. Because when the heart is moved, then your body moves. And then you take the first steps. You take the steps out into the unknown, unsure about what will actually happen, but being confident that God will lead us. That's powerful. Faith will allow you to take the steps out into the unknown of the uncertain, not sure what's going to happen, but we will be confident that God will lead us through. This is when you'll start to see God. This is when you'll start to feel God. This is when we will start to see history move again. You know, way back in like 2012, 2013, those are the times where people were receiving revelations. And I was receiving revelations too at that time. And I was living in Korea, and I was in the Korea campus headquarters at that time. And we decided to set a 40-day mountain prayer condition on the same mountain that Sunsim lived in when he first came to Seoul in 1978. And every day we got up at 1:30 a.m. We climbed the mountain to pray at the top and listen to the message. And there was this one time I was exhausted. You know, think about it, 1:30 a.m. every day. I didn't want to pray. I was so tired. Then the leader of the campus headquarters at that time, she wears glasses. She puts them in a case, puts them next to herself, and she starts to pray. But suddenly she screams. And what happened was her glass case fell down the side of the mountain. And my first thought was, this is my lucky day. Sweet. I'm just going to volunteer to go find these glasses so I don't have to pray. I'm just too tired. So as I started to climb down the mountain to find these glasses, and you know, I knew that we were not going to find them. Like, it's dark, and you know, we don't even know how far down the mountain it fell. But another friend decided to volunteer too, and his name was Mido. His Korean name was Mido, which literally means believe or faith. So both of us climbed down for a bit, and then we said, hey, should we start looking here? Sure. In my head, I'm like, sure, anywhere, because we're not going to find them anyways. And I really didn't think we would find anything. So I wasn't even looking that hard. Turned my phone, you know, the light on my phone, started looking around. And then like 2-3 minutes later, Mido shouts, found him. I was so shocked. I was like, what? How the heck did he find them? And as I'm walking back up the mountain, just dumbfounded, I asked Jesus, how did he find it so fast? And Jesus answered, do you know why I sent Mido with you? And I was like, no. And he said, because you have to believe. You have to believe it. At that time, Providence was talking about evangelizing 100,000 people. And Jesus said, the reason why we're not evangelizing 100,000 people is because people don't really believe. They don't have faith. And when I heard Jesus say that, it really made me think everything has to start with faith. It has to start with believing. It has to have that confidence and that assurance that even though I have no idea what's going to happen next, but if God is with me, something's going to happen and it's going to be better than what I thought. It's that belief that allows you to go. It's the belief that allows you to take the first steps. But most importantly, it's the faith that allows you to see God. to hear God and to be with God. I really hope that this is a message that all of us here too can really think about is, in this time right now, are we just waiting? Just wait for all the answers to come out first and then say, oh God, I had faith? Is that faith? We're going to wait for everything to finish and when God's history wins, we say, oh, I had faith. Or is that faith there already before? The confidence, the assurance in this history. Yeah, we may look like idiots right now to the world, but not to God. Faith allows us to take the first steps. And I hope it's something that all of us here together can do in our churches, in our individual lives, for our countries, for ourselves, for our families. And I know that with this faith, your confidence and that assurance you have, God will not allow it or allow you to be embarrassed. So that is today's Sermons in the Sky. I hope it's something that really touched your hearts and made you think more deeply about what you're doing right now, which means this is the end of today's podcast. It seems a little bit short, but kind of in line with the hour that we usually do. So I hope everyone has an amazing and awesome Thursday, and exciting because tomorrow's Friday. We'll see you tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion.